Comedy is subjective. Just because I find a joke funny doesn't mean that someone else will. It's not fair for me to judge what makes someone laugh because I don't live their life.
I don't want to talk about politics tonight. One side is very pro-gun. The other side is very anti-gun. I don't think they thought through that strategy. Women's sports, still way too competitive for me. So what I think I'm going to start doing is identifying as a kid, start playing pee-wee football. And I think gluten is the Donald Trump of the food world. A lot of people say they're intolerant. Most of those people go home and crave it, don't they? Joe Biden died 2 years ago. Did y'all ever see the movie Weekend at Bernie's? Push him out on stage. Time to give a speech, Joe. I don't believe in reality anymore. In our next pandemic, if we ever have a real one, I'm so jaded by this one, I don't trust anybody. Like, there could be bodies getting vaporized in front of me. I'll be like, I don't believe it. Walk right into it. Oh, fuck. I live in Texas. We don't need vaccines. We have guns.
Comedy's objective. There is absolutely bad comedy. I don't live their life, and I don't want to, because I don't think I could ever imagine being so excluded from society that my taste in comedy and therefore art becomes so vapid and inane that I commit to a bend-over laugh after hearing regurgitated Facebook memes. I'm just kidding. Even though I do definitely disagree with these people, I'm not going to judge them based on what makes them laugh. Not because comedy is subjective, which I do think it is, but because, well, this isn't comedy. Who are you, the comedy police? Yes, we've already had this conversation. Officer Sharma, badge number 80085. And it's our job to keep these streets safe and smiling, because if not us, then who? Hashtag defund the police. Hashtag we keep the cop and cop median. Cop median? Get it? Because, yeah, I need to workshop that one. People think that we've gotten strict and don't consider a lot of comedy funny because it's offensive, but as an established officer of the dark humor and offensive comedy division, I can tell you that this isn't bad because it offended me. It offended me because it's bad.
So what I think I'm going to start doing is identifying as a kid, start playing pee-wee football.
I'm going to start identifying as a kid. Grow up. I'm tired of hearing the same I identify as joke. It's boring, it's derivative, it's shapeless, especially coming from someone that looks like they identify as the grumpy old troll.
Time to give a speech, Joe.
Oh my God, get new jokes, please. We know Joe Biden's old, but he's also in the same boat as pretty much everybody in this crowd.
Like, there could be bodies getting vaporized in front of me. I'll be like, I don't believe it. Walk right into it. Oh, fuck.
Self-admitting that you're so brainwashed that you wouldn't believe if someone was dying right in front of you isn't a joke. It's a cry for help. And I'd help you, but that's a job for the actual police, because they don't quite take us seriously yet. Oh, that one wasn't a joke. We're actually not allowed to use the term cop or police because we're not qualified whatsoever in assaulting our wives. You also just shouldn't be allowed to do stand-up comedy if your routine is based on the drunk uncle at a family gathering. Be creative, man. Please, think outside of the box. I've heard all of these jokes on Fox News. From what we've gathered from this comedy special trailer and from my 12 years of experience as a cop median, nope, still doesn't work. This is a person who understands how to appeal to a conservative demographic and therefore profit off of it, allowing for the most bare minimum type of humor to pass and pass well. Because again, it isn't humor. It's rhetoric affirming a specific frame of mind. JP Sears, or Awakened with JP for long, is an alt-right comedian dedicated to waking you up to the left's woke propaganda with his funny and informative skits, often satirizing liberals, progressives, or anyone he finds to be woke. His humor overall feels lazy and like it lacks a lot of substance. I think conservatives can be funny. I've seen funny conservatives, but JP tends to reuse and recycle the same rhetoric in his jokes. In fact, he seems to prioritize the rhetoric much more so than the jokes, to the point where the jokes start to not make any sense. JP did a video with the Liver King satirizing vegans, of course, and in it, there are plenty of examples of JP just not feeling the need to make any sense in the context of the skit.
This is great. I love vegan cuisine. Having my stomach filled with undigestible cellulose makes me feel like I'm not still hungry.
Yeah, satisfying yourself with malnourishment is the key to being jacked.
But I have a question for you, and I'm sorry to be so skeptical, but are you sure you're a vegan?
Yeah?
It's just that most vegans have more muscle than you. I mean, you kind of look like one of those skinny, sickly, malnourished meat eaters.
I'm already aware of that.
See, this doesn't make any sense. First of all, people don't become vegan to be jacked. A healthier lifestyle and diet does not directly correlate with gaining muscle. And sure, there are some pretentious vegans, but I don't think vegans in general think that meat eaters are unhealthy or malnourished. Again, that isn't the point of veganism. These are all just things that meat eaters say about vegans. So really, you're not satirizing vegans here. I guess in a way, you're satirizing meat eaters who satirize vegans. Which, if that's the case, genius. And I guess the joke here is that JP is calling the Liver King small when he's clearly not. Because going vegan won't get you ripped. But steroids will. And then they make an unprovoked gay joke.
I got infected with veganism about 10 years ago. I knew it was going around, but thought it could never happen to me. But then I ended up catching it from a guy named Kevin.
That's beautiful.
We were having an unprotected meal together, and you're right, it was beautiful.
What? That joke doesn't make sense either. You're just being homophobic to be homophobic. The joke here, if you didn't catch it, is that JP caught veganism like how you would catch HIV. But in this case, it was through an unprotected meal. So you willingly ate a vegan meal. Trying to frame veganism as a disease doesn't work because, well, it isn't one. This is kind of what I'm talking about. The jokes don't really make any sense, and there's very clearly an agenda that is trying to be pushed. JP is trying to instill and maintain a sense of fear in his audience by making these progressive ideologies seem a lot more dangerous than they are. But my favorite joke in this video has to be the one where he says that vegans are cannibals?
But I will say, while I am completely against eating meat, I'm not necessarily not on board with cannibalism.
Same.
What the fuck? Now you're just straight up lying. That wasn't even a joke. What was the punchline? Trying to make vegans seem as evil as possible? I mean, this is ridiculous. But this is JP's content. And sometimes he gets so lost in the sauce and so desensitized to the propaganda he's spewing that not only do the jokes in the context not make any sense, but the context itself doesn't make any sense. His most recent video is the guys who sell this shit on Amazon. So looking at the thumbnail, the main gist of this video seems to be that JP and his friend are going to make fun of people that sell progressive products.
Have you ever seen one of these yard signs and asked, who's making this dumb shit?
Well, that's us. We make that dumb shit.
We actually make a lot of dumb shit. We specialize in merchant apparel to meet all your protesting and virtue signaling needs. Find us on Amazon.
We've actually gotten incredibly rich. Love is love. Money is money.
Right, okay, they don't care about the causes the products represent. They're just selling them to make money. I'm just a little confused because it seems like they're dressed as conservatives, which would be JP's fan base, which would mean that he's making fun of his own fan base. But I could be missing something. Let's keep going.
And for example, this whole pro-Palestine thing has been great for business. A lot of white undergrad students named Kelly all of a sudden need to wear a hijab to show their support for their homeland that they've never been to. I think it goes across like this.
Oh, so they
I don't know
can't talk.
if it's a hood. Yeah, it kind of keeps the women silent.
Silence them, I get it.
These people had no idea where to get one of them things, because, they really don't care.
Okay, now I'm even more confused because it seems like they're making fun of the people that buy the products too. Are they making fun of the sellers at all? I thought the point of the video was to satirize the guys who sell this shit online. Because, the title of the skit often refers to who or what you're satirizing. That's just the format. I don't make the rules. But the characters they're playing, I would argue, seem to be conservative. Not just because of what they're wearing, which, you could argue that maybe JP is in character as a liberal that unironically dresses as a conservative, even though I doubt JP is that up to date with Gen Z's latest fashion trends. But also because the character he's playing makes a QAnon joke and takes an anti-vaccine stance. So he's definitely on the right.
I didn't even know what LGBTQ was before we started selling their stuff.
Not at all.
I thought that Q stood for QAnon.
Yeah, he actually did, man.
So initially I was all in on supporting him. Yeah, folks thought antibacterial agents would protect them from a virus for some reason. We never really understood it.
Never understood it.
And if you want more evidence, when JP satirizes a liberal, he does not make it subtle.
That's a good start in cleansing men of toxic masculinity through the toxins in water. But we still have a ways to go until sperm counts are at an ideal carbon neutral level of 0.
So what? It's two conservatives making fun of the people that buy these products, but also making fun of themselves for selling the same products? Besides the fact that JP's friend is way funnier than him, I mean, it isn't even close. Does JP not understand what satire is? That you're supposed to be doing a dramatic reenactment to critique the person you're reenacting? If you wanted to make fun of liberals that buy this shit online, you could have done that. I mean, you do it a lot. I don't think the concept of satire is lost on you. I guess I'm just so confuddled because I can't tell if he's making fun of the sellers either. I had to rewrite this portion of the script so many times because I couldn't tell what the fuck JP was going for here. Like, he's clearly making fun of the buyers, who in this case are the liberals. People are performative and buy progressive products to seem knowledgeable about whatever cause. I mean, that isn't an isolated issue, it's more of a critique on capitalism and consumerism. Anyone can be performative, but a lot of people do care, and a lot of progressive organizations donate portions, if not all of their proceeds, to charities. But honestly, debunking his points and this argument doesn't really interest me because everything is so taken out of context. I'm more intrigued on, due to JP's lack of comedic awareness and skill, if he's unknowingly making fun of his own audience, or better yet, if he's unknowingly making fun of himself. Because JP does exactly the same thing the character he's playing does. He capitalizes off of the distress and division of others. The only difference is that it's with conservative merch. American made. Border control. Got God? Make 1984 fiction again. Freedom isn't free. Yeah, it's $35? God damn. A trucker hat that reads freedom isn't free. $7 more than his American-made white cotton t-shirt. Does freedom look a little expensive to you? Well, fear not, because you're not just buying a product, you're endorsing freedom. You're amplifying your voice, and you're joining a movement that values freedom above all. Pro-gun, anti-idiot. More like pro-idiot, anti-gun. Because that's what you look like. Someone who's pro-idiot. So, okay. He's so bad at comedy that he completely misses the point of his own satire and outs himself as a hypocrite in the process. Man, and I thought this self-admission of being brainwashed was impressive. And you would think his audience would call him out for this. Or at least call him out because if he's making fun of himself for being the seller, then he's making fun of them for being the buyers. But nope, they don't see any problems at all. No, in their eyes, JP's merch is beneficial, and progressive merch is strictly designed to cater to political or virtue-signaling fads. Yeah, because buying a $35 hat that reads, freedom isn't free, isn't a political scam whatsoever. So either JP is an extremely intelligent comedian and grifter and knows that he can completely get away with satirizing himself and his own audience and in the process out himself as a hypocrite, or he's so bad at comedy that he accidentally satirizes his own audience, outs himself as a hypocrite, and still completely gets away with it. I would definitely prefer the latter, but I guess it doesn't matter because either way, he still gets what he wants. Now, I wanted to make this video not just to analyze JP's blatant propaganda shitposting by way of his comical ineptitude, but also because this is a rare case where we can analyze how JP ended up where he is today. So let's see if we can get to know him just a little bit better.
A genuine healing comes when we can compassionately accept ourselves as we are. An essential way to healing is to find the source of compassionate acceptance for ourselves from our own heart.
That's right, JP's left up all of his content, so now we don't have to wonder or assume if he's a grifter. We can actually see it for ourselves. Sometimes they just make it too easy. You may have thought JP named his channel Awaken with JP so he can get you out of your woke slumber and see the light. The light being his merchandise. But really, he named it Awaken with JP because he originally made spiritual how-to videos.
If I try and build the whole self-worth puzzle of JP Sears off of how sexually appealing am I to the opposite sex, that tells me that unconsciously I am living in a swamp of shame of my sexuality.
I guess it just so happened that Awaken correlated well with current conservative rhetoric, making the grift that much easier. But before that, he enlightened viewers with his wise and profound perspective on the world, discussing topics like healthy sexuality, freedom of self-judgment, and healing your insecurities.
Hello, I'm JP Sears, and I'm a sexual being. If you happen to be a human, I suspect that you too are a sexual being, whether you love it or don't like it. And that's what I'd like to talk with you today about, some food for thought on how you can have healthy sexuality.
This JP sounds completely different from the anti-LGBT and anti-self-expression and identity JP we all know and love. I mean, the contrast is stark. I mean, this is actually cool and interesting, diving into sexual being and what it means to express yourself sexually. This is a JP I can get on board with. One that supports gay marriage.
I have a really important question to discuss today, and the question is over gay marriage. So if there's anything that I think should be banned, it would probably be heterosexual marriage. I mean, when you look at, okay, over 50% of marriages fail, is that really successful?
In this video, he discusses how in the past we as humans have shunned and discriminated against people that choose to express themselves freely, and how this is just history repeating itself. He even brings up Christianity and discusses how interpretation of a religious text should be done at an individual level and not a collective one.
And maybe it's not even that, maybe it's even more diluted, where it's actually your interpretation of someone else's interpretation of someone else's interpretation of someone else's interpretation of the religious scripture says being gay is bad. So I would like to challenge you to own your perceptions.
This is important information for later, so don't forget it. This was a JP that was calm and collected and navigated with good intention. And then he started making skits. You see, at the time, JP's serious and informative videos weren't making the cut, so he had to try something new. A skit making fun of ultra-spiritual people, which he had to label funny, as to not confuse his audience. Because if you're a spiritual guru that makes genuine content about being spiritual and then decides to make a video making fun of spiritual gurus, I'd be a little confused too. That would be like me making a video about Indian racism to then turn around and make a skit making fun of someone that makes a video about Indian racism. But don't fret, he was making fun of the people that are performative with their spirituality, not JP. But it was too late. This video had garnered over 2 million views, compared to the inconsistent fluctuation of his normal content. The only problem is, it had brought in a different audience, an audience that tends to lean to the right and makes fun of people like JP, and who now couldn't tell when JP was being serious or unserious, even when he specified. Fuck, can't tell if he's a jokester or a serious dude that makes a few joke videos. Wait, are we supposed to take this one seriously? It's delivered exactly the same way as the satires, but there are no jokes except in the scene with the women. I never know whether to take these vids seriously or it being sarcastic. And JP, not wanting to lose his new fan base, decided to comply. I never know either. And on he went, attempting to appeal to two different audiences at the same time, making serious and enlightening videos to basically turn around and mock himself in the same breath. How to meditate funny, the podcast life, satirical, a seriously important announcement from me to you, my podcast launch. It had gotten to a point where this ultra-spiritual character that JP had created was completely outperforming the rest of his content. And slowly, as you scroll through his videos, you see the serious, educational, spiritual JP start to fade away. But even still, with all the skits, JP still held the same morals and vaguely progressive political beliefs. Like this video where he talks about the Charleston, South Carolina church shooter and gives really profound and introspective dialogue on the subject.
And I'm okay being angry about it. And I'd invite you, if you're angry about hate crimes, whether they're the ones happening in Charleston or elsewhere, I'd invite you to be angry about it. I would guess the reason why he acted out these despicable murders was he was projecting his shadow onto the people he killed. And what he was actually trying to do was kill his shadow. Literally speaking, he obviously killed other people, beyond a tragedy.
Although it doesn't seem like JP blatantly stood anywhere political specifically, discussing racism and inherent hate with this much introspection requires a certain level of intelligence and sense of morality. Although the context of his skits are strange in relation to his more serious videos, he rarely incorporated politics into them. And when he did, they surprisingly made fun of topics that conservatives tend to agree with. Like this skit where he satirizes police brutality and stands up for marginalized people post George Floyd death.
Your first lesson in serving and protecting is how to racially profile. Step number 1, feel inferior about yourself because you're a weak and scared person.
I mean, this is a subject that current JP would absolutely rip to shreds. So what the fuck happened? How did socially aware, progressive mindset JP become conspiracy peddling, conservative propaganda JP? Well, I have one word for you. Plandemic. Which goes hard. If it's one thing conservatives know how to do, it's wordplay. I can confidently say that COVID-19 and the pandemic was a life-altering event for everyone. I was one of the more fortunate, for sure, because that was around the time that I started to take content creation seriously. And without that period of my life where I didn't have anything to do, I doubt I would have been in the position where I could have seriously considered pursuing it. However, that was the life of a child, one that was not really burdened with having to take care of loved ones, or was heavily exposed to the politics of the time. While this created a lot of new inspiration and hobbies for people, it also instilled fear and ambiguity in others, which in turn created this sort of vacuum. Currently in the middle of reading Doppelganger by Naomi Klein, and some of the things she talks about in this book weirdly correlated with the concept of grifting that I was discussing in this video. The main gist in this book, or at least as far as I've gotten, which is about halfway, is a discussion surrounding the dualism and dichotomy present in our society, namely how social media has exemplified it. And when I say dualism, I'm referring to a sort of either-or situation that capitalism and America's two-party system is partly responsible for. Klein defines this as doppelganger culture, where on an individual level, a culture crowded with various forms of doubling, in which all of us who maintain a persona or avatar online create our own doppelgangers. That becomes distinctly more consequential once you zoom out, like the way that all of politics increasingly feels like a mirror world, with society split in two and each side defining itself against the other. Whatever one says and believes, the other seems obligated to say and believe the exact opposite. The deeper I went, the more I noticed this phenomenon all around me. Individuals not guided by legible principles or beliefs, but acting as members of groups playing yin to the other's yang. Well versus weak, awake versus sheep, righteous versus depraved. Binaries where thinking once lived. From our own perspectives, we see right and wrong, but that's not really what it is. When you take yourself out of body and observe from an omniscient point of view, it's one opinion versus another. A white supremacist believes they are correct just as much as I believe I'm correct. Obviously, morality is relative to the norms of a culture, but the people in power get to dictate what those norms become. This is what makes grifting so dangerous. It starts off as just for personal gain, but can quickly turn into a world-altering occurrence. And Naomi observes this phenomenon by way of her own doppelganger, Naomi Wolf, who is a stark opposite and mirror of herself, politically, physically, and even celebrity status-wise. Someone who gained notoriety for her feminist and pro-women literature during a time where feminist icons were hard to come by, to then turn around and become a puppet for COVID and now many different kinds of conspiracy theories, working with the likes of Steve Bannon and completely tarnishing her reputation as an iconic third-wave feminist who spoke out when others wouldn't dare. Remind you of someone? Sure, JP didn't have nearly as much of an impact as Naomi, but the stories align. Now, this book describes COVID and the pandemic as the catalyst for this strange societal shift towards the conspiratorial right. When discussing COVID, Klein writes, "A state of shock is what happens to us individually or as a society when we experience a sudden and unprecedented event for which we do not yet have an adequate explanation. At its essence, a shock is the gap that opens up between event and existing narratives to explain that event. Being creatures of narrative, humans tend to be very uncomfortable with meaning vacuums, which is why those opportunistic players, the people I have termed disaster capitalists, have been able to rush into the gap with their pre-existing wish lists and simplistic stories of good and evil. The stories themselves may be cartoonishly wrong, but at least these stories exist, and that alone is enough to make them better than the nothingness of the gap." Enter JP Sears, whose grift became evident during the height of the pandemic. Take this coronavirus skit, for instance, where JP makes fun of the, in his view, extreme reaction to the virus, even making a joke about the government impeding on people's rights and canceling heterosexuality.
Accordingly, South by Southwest is now canceled. We're also taking precautionary measures in canceling the summer, all birthdays, the next full moon, the Olympics, and heterosexuality.
This is an interesting joke, seeing its juxtaposition with JP's gay marriage video, where he made a joke that heterosexual marriages should be banned instead of gay ones. Now, coincidentally enough, the time of the pandemic is really where JP's right-wing skits emerged, lightly making fun of blue-pilled people who take the virus too seriously and cancel culture not allowing you to live your life, quickly turning into communism in America is keeping you inside and gay people are brainwashing you and your children. This all happens, by the way, in the span of like a year. JP made a video making fun of people that don't believe in systemic racism. The same year, he made a video about America's communism taking over your Christmas. Going from skeptical about COVID to full-on conspiracy theorist in the span of 3 months is worrying. But it's not uncommon. Besides the virus, the air was filled with fear, suspicion, and worry. Gordon Pennycook, a behavioral scientist at the University of Virginia, explains that as the virus spread, conspiracy peddlers found a ready audience with the public that was in a state of generalized fear of getting seriously ill and possibly dying, and simultaneously had very real worries about what public health measures like stay-at-home orders, school closures, and masking would mean for their livelihoods and loved ones. Those fears distract people from judging the accuracy of the content they may read online, he told the New York Times, adding, "As a rule, people don't want to spread false content. But at a time like this, when people are worried about the virus, vitamin C cures COVID, or it's all a hoax, tend to travel widely." What made it worse is that the media kept quiet about vaccine risks with hopes as to not further concern people or even give ammo to the already increasing conspiracy crowd. This could have been easily explained by medical experts skilled in helping the public weigh the pros and cons of health decisions. Many media outlets, however, seemed gripped by the fear that anything more than a passing report on possible risks would damage vaccine uptake and provide fodder for their conspiracy crowd. Except the opposite turned out to be true. Without easy access to reliable, in-depth information about vaccine risks, rumors about friends of friends falling ill or dropping dead after getting the jab coursed through the digital grapevine. A door was left wide open for my doppelganger and other attention economy hustlers to position themselves as fearless medical investigators combing through raw vaccine trial data and supposedly suppressed CDC reports that people without medical degrees generally lack the expertise to interpret. Now, we don't really know if JP Sears is one of the people taken advantage of by the attention economy hustlers, or if he himself is an attention economy hustler. But we sure can hypothesize. For one, JP had already been kind of building up a conservative-based audience with his satirical spirituality videos. The more he began to lean into that audience and the attention that was coming from it, the more of himself he had to alter, until he found himself in the information void that COVID had brought. And suddenly, the market opened up and the audience he had already started to appeal to went in a direction JP could either follow and make more money off of, or take the risk of leaving it behind, not knowing where his career would land. And what did he do?
So I asked the question, why are people getting more Christian without even trying? Here's what I believe to be true about that. The presence of evil and Satan that evil emanates from has never been more obvious, at least in my lifetime. The past 3 years, evil isn't hiding anymore. It's coming at us through authoritarianism, movements, people, groups, companies, governments trying to invade our minds, invade our God-given free will.
He became an attention economy hustler. Remember earlier when we talked about JP critiquing Christians for thinking collectively and not individually? Well, now he's telling his audience, the people that he critiqued, that their individuality is at risk. Maybe you need to take some of your own advice, JP. The fear makes the money. If you have answers, you have power.
And also specifically, we could say, hey, there is an attempt to bring communism all over the world, certainly in the United States. We don't call it that, but it is that.
And just one more thing, I wanted to let you know about the newest design in my merch line. My favorite design has also become the best-selling design. It's the Got God shirt. If you'd like to get your faith-loving hands on one, you can just go to awakenwithjp.com or hit the link in the description of this video to grab one for yourself or your friends and family. I found it's a beautiful way to help encourage people to think about God and to turn to God when we need Him most, which is now.
Telling your audience that communism is the devil and it's going to take your religion just so you can sell your t-shirts is deplorable. Not even a good t-shirt at that. I just went to bat for you conservatives for having good wordplay. Don't make me regret it. Yes, this video is JP coming out as Christian and being upfront and honest about his past. The same past we just spent 20 minutes discussing. Maybe that's why he's okay with leaving up all of his old videos. Because people change. He changed his mind about religion. He changed his mind about cancel culture. He's a changed man, awakened with the truth, right?
Oh, now look, we're in JP and Amber's son's room where he loves his books. That's nice to see. Oh, here's a close-up. Wait, what book is that in the corner? Love in the Wild. What is that about? Oh, here's a description. The sweet rhyming text in Mud Puppy's Love in the Wild board book highlights the many different types of love that can be found in the animal kingdom. This colorful celebration of love is based on scientists' observations of same-sex couples, adoption, non-binary gender expression, and more.
All right, well, I don't know about you, but my hypothesis seems like it was right on the dot. I mean, it's been very obvious the whole time. Please don't get me wrong. We all kind of instinctively knew that there was no way JP genuinely believes the shit that he's putting out into the world. I think the proof just kind of makes me feel more uneasy in a way. Because assuming this isn't a deep fake or anything, JP is spreading and enforcing conspiracy theories to an immeasurable audience, providing an immeasurable impact onto them. And then he's turning around and teaching his children about his real beliefs, everything he's supposed to be against. The grift begins to further yourself and your power individually. But it ends with indoctrination and global consequences. At first, I thought what I was seeing in my doppelganger's world was mostly Grifting Unbound. Over time, though, I started to get the distinct impression that I was also witnessing a new and dangerous political formation find itself in real time. Its alliances, worldview, slogans, enemies, code words, and no-go zones. And most of all, its ground game for taking power. It's just disappointing that someone that seemed as spiritually balanced and morally sound as JP would still race to keep up with his personal brand, no matter how much of himself he had to kill along the way. Conservative-minded people love to talk about celebrities selling their soul to the devil for their success. But that's exactly what I believe grifting is. Giving up all of yourself, your morals, what you stand for, who you are, to a system that gives you success, what you think it is you want. And I can confidently tell you right now, JP, it definitely isn't comedy. It's called timing, baby. I think you can learn a thing or two from us cop medians. Yeah, that's right, it works. Cop median works. ACAB. All cops are better than you at comedy. 10-4 or something.
Disclaimer. The comedy police and the real police are completely separate entities and are not related whatsoever. We here on the Saji Sharma YouTube channel identify the US police as a militarized organization and do not endorse or condone anything they say or do.